talking about that potential flooding. Let's go out now to Mason County.
The Skokomish River crested at 17.5 feet Thursday.
Why did the salmon cross the road, Jen?
This is great.
To get to its spawning grounds.
The people who live and work around here say they expect with more rain coming, that water level will reach even higher on that marker.
People are tied to the river. It's life-sustaining, life-giving to the tribe and to the community as a whole. We rely on it for certainly the salmon and the water, for subsistence, ceremonial, and economic well-being. And it serves to enable the spiritual well-being of the community, of each and every one of us.
In 1945, there was a big flood and it washed out the bridge. My grandparents had a dairy farm, and cows don't just stop producing milk just because the bridge is out. So they rigged up a cable, and there's people in these pictures that are getting milk cans across the river by cable. So I'm fifth generation of my family to live here in the Skokomish Valley. And my grandpa's great uncle homesteaded here in 1877. A lot of that same property has been in the family ever since, and raised my kids here, hopeful that someday maybe they'll raise their kids here.
This valley, it's definitely unique in Mason County. It's one of the only farmable areas. We've got a confluence of 3 rivers here on our property, which is rather striking. Being at the southern edge of the Olympics means that we get a lot of really interesting weather that comes whipping around the mountains and up through this valley.
I grew up in Mason County. I have memories of fishing in this river valley as a young kid. When I came on at the Conservation District, I saw myself as someone who wanted to forward salmon recovery and work towards improving the natural spaces that we've had impacts on. But what I found pretty quickly is that it's more important than that. We're not just trying to recover endangered fish populations. My role is to help a community that is also living in and around these natural areas.
Growing up, we spent a lot of time out on the river bar. So every year, the flood would change and move gravel and move log jams. For the house that I lived in, we made marks on the deck for the flood height. Fairly often, the flood height would beat the old record and then beat the old record.
A typical river system will time out at 2-year intervals before you see an over-the-bank flooding occurrence, where we're seeing it many more times than every other year, about 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 times a year for multiple days of the year.
I do have a lot of family in the area. Definitely very important to be able to have emergency services, or even just getting to doctor appointments. You know, you schedule a doctor appointment, but you always have to have it in the back of your mind. If it floods, you know, how am I going to get to my appointment?
I want to see a future where generations down the road can be out here catching king salmon that are naturally reproducing in the upper watershed and feeding their families. But I also want to see a future where you don't hear regularly on the announcement at the school, Skokomish Watershed students, please come to the office. We're going to put you on the bus and take you home early today because the river's going to flood. I don't want to see the news reports that show the salmon swimming across the road. I want that to be a very rare occurrence instead of an annual event.
Up in the upper watershed and the lower watershed, there's been a lot of work done over the last 20 years. and it's time to get projects done in the middle watershed. I do think it's very important that people come out, bring ideas to the table, and we'll find a path forward.
We've always looked at salmon habitat restoration and flood mitigation as two things that we can accomplish at the same time. The funding was only for salmon. There was no funding for flood mitigation. The thing that people really cared about, like the river being in their basement, suddenly wasn't being talked about. But I think we have a chance to build off of what's left and to do it in more discreet, focused, and beneficial ways.
It doesn't matter how we got here. The fact is that this river has been impacted by past land use practices, and we need to find a path forward. With this new fresh start, we're able to look at everything again. Everything's back on the table. We're here as a conservation district to meet you at your kitchen table, come into our office, pick up the phone and call us. We'll provide opportunity for written comment. You might see surveys coming in the mail. It's not just checking a box. This is a critical piece of the path to success, is maintaining this line of communication and this engagement. This work is complex, and it takes everyone coming together to make something big happen. People think of the decision makers as being elected officials or governmental agencies. But in my line of work at the Conservation District, the true bottom line decision maker is the landowner.